at this moment we're speaking, every 12 seconds, a girl is undergoing a refugee. I think I've always been so proud to be British citizen. I have always been proud. And what I have learned since I became mayor, even before, is more like sometimes people won't come to you, you have to go to them.
So, welcome to Peckham Podcast, another edition with a very special person, and it's my great pleasure and privilege to introduce the Mayor of Southwark, the Worshipful Mayor, Councillor Naima Ali. Welcome. Now, you have quite a story, and I'm going to start at the end and then we can go back to the beginning, because just recently you were named amongst Global Power Leaders for 2025, which is really, it's quite something, that, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Were you surprised?
When I received the invite, it was, but I didn't know who the kind of people that I would be meeting when I was collecting my award. And the most interesting bit was I met a lot of diplomats, a lot of senior officials from different countries, so many to be honest. And me being there, and I had also an honor to be giving award to others, the fact that I'm the mayor. So that gave me even more. It was a surprise in a way, but based on what I have done since I became the mayor of Southwark, it wasn't a surprise to me because I took my role with all my heart and 100%, and I wasn't showing off what I was doing, but the world did see what I have done, and I think I was very confident of what I was doing. It was good, and I didn't know that that had more impact on many people outside, because my focus was more on Southwark, but globally it wasn't something, to be honest. Yeah.
No, it's a bit of a step, isn't it?
It was a big one.
A London borough to the world.
To the world, yeah.
Well,
and when I went there as well, the most interesting bit, which I was almost among the very few hijabi, very few. Mm-hmm. But I am always proud of being from Southwark. So wherever I go, I'm like, Muslim woman with hijabi from Southwark. That gives me more like the pride of being the resident of Southwark as well.
Well, that's very nice to hear. But you're also from Somalia, aren't you?
Yeah.
And you came over here when you were still, you weren't 20 years old, were you?
Thank you for making me younger. I think I was almost there in my 20s. I was obviously young and with no one, and coming to a new country, trying to, even before I kind of like get used to my neighbors, getting used to the climate, the weather was something that was of a massive shock. And the culture as well, the English accent, however much, even if I did speak English, but not to this extent now of speaking fluently and even understanding Irish and Scottish and English accent. So I try.
I was wondering what it would have been like for you had you gone first to Glasgow, say, because English people find it hard to understand Glaswegians.
You know what, when I say Scottish, because some of my clients were Scottish. And when I was working, which I will tell you in addiction field, where I was working, I used to allow them to speak to me in their accent, so at least I can learn and so we can communicate effectively.
Right.
But I'm not so full. I don't understand all now, but obviously I can easily pick different accents as well.
Why did you leave Somalia?
It was because of the war, and everyone was coming here looking for some more just peace, seeking asylum. So I think I did make the best decision to be in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah, the best decision where I have got no regrets whatsoever calling UK my home. And that is why I'm giving 100%, knowing that I have to give back. But because coming to UK with nothing, a small bag, with 2 skirts and 2 tops, and being the mayor of Southwark now, it's an opportunity that I'm sure I can only get in UK. And I will just tell you, recently I had an opportunity to travel to France to a kind of like high-profile visit. We are twinned with a city in France, and every year the mayors, which I tend to travel there. But in France, women are allowed to wear hijab in the street. The kids are not allowed to wear hijab in school until university. And I was clearly told that a woman like me cannot hold any position in any office. That means I cannot be a politician, I cannot be in a kind of senior position. But the most interesting bit is I went there as a British citizen. When I went there, when they told me, luckily I have that people's passion, I easily can integrate, I've got no problem whatsoever. Straight away I clicked with the people who were welcoming us. And when we went, I think I've always been so proud to be British citizen. I have always been proud. But when I even went to France, knowing that a woman like me, I don't even remember, I don't think if they've had any woman with hijab coming to that, because I went to lay wreath for our RAF, those who have been bombed in the Second World War, and it was an amazing. But marching with the Senate and Congress, knowing that, they don't allow hijab, but I've been allowed, not because of being black, not because of being woman, not because of being a Muslim woman, but because of being a British citizen. And that is when I came to know, like, you know what? I will never complain. I've never complained. We are the most tolerant, the most welcoming, based on I'm not talking for anybody. It's me. I always talk confidently of my lived experience. And that has added more to something that I've been sharing with people. When we start complaining, think from the day I stepped my foot into UK and all the opportunities I had. It didn't come. I have to look for it. I have to go. Even when I was working in addiction field, I never knew about heroin or crack cocaine or anything. I just started with working with Somalis. Then I said, actually, I need to work. Why should I be working with Somali cat users? There is a drug that Somalis use. Why should I be working only with people who look like me? I want to do more. And then I ended up becoming a primary care practitioner, which is more like GP shared care. All that has contributed. I really enjoyed my journey. It has been so painful. I've gone through a lot from the time I stepped my foot. Getting married, having a child, husband died on my first marriage anniversary, then all by myself. But what do I say? What doesn't kill you makes you strong. And here I am today.
Indeed. I remember in the early 2000s, I was doing a project with media locally across the borough of Southwark. And I came to know quite a lot of people in the Somali community then. So 2003, 2004. And I came to see some of the difficulties that the community had because of the war from which families had fled. And children would grow up and become kind of British quickly because they learn language fast. And the mother would stay largely at home. And for the mother, it seemed to be naturally more difficult to find a way into society because her duties were at home. And there was a kind of difficulty grew between the generations a bit as the children became quickly assimilated into the culture they found at school, and their language became proficient quickly.
Very.
And the parents, it was harder.
You just say something that I've always been talking about. When we are communicating with our even the language, we don't communicate very well because they speak very kind of like fluent English, and for some parents who cannot speak English, and then there's always that intergenerational trauma. And what happened is coming to a new country, starting from scratch, trying to understand, to cope, then all of a sudden wanting to work, then the kids, understanding the system, school and everything. And women tend to forget all the trauma, all the things that they've gone through as a result of war, because their focus is only on, even up to now, to be honest, I have been talking to so many that they've never had an opportunity to speak about themselves. And when we start talking, it's kind of like luckily, I'm doing a lot of work with women, not only from Somalia, all women, but it's so hard, the challenges that they've faced since they came to UK and up to now. But at the end of the day, sometimes you just come out, integrate. When we say integration, I know some people tend to say, why should I integrate? To me, I understand like integration, we can integrate in different ways. Integration does not mean becoming more like English me copying or living your life, or I can live my life, you can live your life, but they will always like halfway that we can take the best from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I know whenever we say integration, some people are like, why are you talking about integration? But how can we be empowering community only without helping them to integrate into the system, not the culture? Because I think sometimes the language that we're using can make people feel like, oops, I need to keep myself to myself. We've got a long way to go, to be honest, bringing the community together. But when it comes to families and children, it is one of the toughest, and unfortunately it is still there. And we are having a high population of single parents as well, and that is also as a result of cultural shock. And I will tell you, for example, for many of our different communities, like I will say, we come in from Africa, from Somalia, where men were the breadwinners. So they're the one going out to work. But coming here, it's already changed a bit. So it's more like, I will call it power sharing in the family, which can bring a lot of tension as well. So I think the kids, it is tough, to be honest. It is very hard. I have my kids, whenever sometimes they talk to me, I tell them, can you just repeat, don't use the slang or language that you're using on the street. Just communicate with me. And imagine it is me who kind of like can communicate. Sometimes I have to tell them to repeat. And I feel sorry for those who cannot speak fluently. And then the kids come with homework. They don't have anybody to help them. Maybe they fail. Then they start becoming involved with wrong people and that whole thing. So the cycle goes on and on. So we definitely need to find ways to break the cycle. And although now they're taking out the word hard to reach. So we are not hard to reach. Disadvantaged, marginalized. When I'm talking about it, you've just started something, but this is bigger than what we just say. Because imagine you're talking about 2003, 2004. It's 2024, and we're talking almost about the same issue in a different ways.
I didn't quite catch what you meant about they're taking out the words hard to reach.
No, the system right now, because of the internet, because of, the services are just within. So it's more like some years ago, I remember when I started working in addiction field, hard to reach was the biggest, 2003. Hard to reach was even harder. But right now, they believe like no one is hard to reach because we are already kind of like exposed to so much. Maybe we can say disadvantage.
What do you think about that idea that people are no longer hard to reach?
To be honest, I agree in a way. I'm not going to be expecting someone who has been in this country for 20 years to be referred still as hard to reach. Does that make sense? Because if I could have sat back 27 years I've been in the UK, yes, I was referred as hard to reach once upon a time, but I pushed myself to be where I am, and I believe many people can. But if we start believing that we are hard to reach, I think we are putting massive barrier, that we just wait on people to do something for us. Because we are hard to reach. But disadvantage is when we can just say like actually they cannot do because of language, then we can find some ways to support them in different ways. So in a way I understand where hard to reach should be out, but unfortunately we go with years as well, is it? Yeah. How we refer our residents some years ago, and now it's definitely changing. And now there is internet. There is everywhere that people can find all information and all that.
I think for me the phrase has other values, and they apply to British people, white British residents, as much as any immigrant community. And that if a child grows up in a certain household, it will not have any aspiration perhaps to succeed. It won't work to pass exams at school because the child has not been encouraged by home life. And those people are hard to reach because they have no example being shown them in daily life as a child from the adults, that there is any point in connecting with this society because they feel, and perhaps literally are, very disadvantaged. And I think those people are hard to reach because they sit within that disadvantage and that negative mindset?
It can be possible, but I think these are the kind of discussions, and that is one of the reasons that I decided to be in politics, because I'm like, if you're not at the table, you'll be in the menu. So at the end of the day, people will make decisions based on how they think and how. It's just like now when we're talking about disadvantage or hard to reach, when people are not involved in any decision making or whatever, that they are not there, that means people will just call them what they think is right. But we haven't heard from these people that we are trying to justify for them. If that makes sense. If we could have gone to this individual that, for example, is saying because of their lifestyle at home, it's so hard to reach. So at the end of the day, is it us who should be reach out to them, or it should be them who should come out? And then right now, look, the kid goes to school. There is a lot of extra support, for example. The system is there. Right now, if anybody, for example, even those who go for benefit, when they go there, they don't just look at the benefit, they look at all aspects of their life. And then they refer them for trainings and all that kind of thing. And that's why I'm saying it's very, within home, that can, I don't know, I don't usually like to speak for many. When they were changing it, they were telling us not to use hard to read. At the beginning, I was so much like trying to say, actually, they're hard to read. But later on, I came to realize that we are trying to justify their behaviors. So once we make them feel like you are hard to reach, they're not going to make that effort to go further and change the way they live. It's me, I think, the way I see it. Yeah. Because sometimes some word that we are using can be very misleading, can make people okay, they're kind of, I don't know if that makes sense. When we say, for example, handouts, well, let me give you an example, handouts or food banks or things like that. Because they don't have anything, they go for food bank. If we just give them the food without giving them more support beyond on how they can improve their life, how they can get into employment, we will just make that normalize that behavior in so many ways. So I think we all have different opinions and different ways of seeing things, but my main thing is always involving everybody, hear from them. And one thing that I'm sure had been happening, we have been controlled, I would say, by this political correctness. We are so scared of having conversation with people. We are so scared because we're thinking like, if I say this, I might be seen as this. For example, you sitting in front of me as a black Muslim woman, I'm sure sometimes you'll be so careful of how you say things and how, you are. But at the end of the day, if we make our world that way, that means you will never know so much about me and you will treat me the way you think is correct. But because you've never asked me, that means maybe the way you treated me or the way you're dealing with my things are not okay. So those are the kind of things that I've been trying, allowing people to have that open conversation. Just try and to be a bit non-judgmental and allow everybody, just if they ask you, don't be upset. Because maybe they're genuinely wanting to know so that that can help them change the way they're dealing with you in a positive way.
Yeah, obviously, I think everybody wants to get back to a place where it's okay just to speak. And then if you're a kind person, nothing improper is going to happen anyway. And if you're not a kind person, then life is going to teach you some lessons along the way and help you be more gentle with others.
But do you think the world we are in now is allowing people to speak freely?
No, not at all.
Not at the moment, right? No. I think it's getting harder now from my experience, because I have seen sometimes people will say, I'm sorry. Even before they start saying anything, I'm sorry. I'm like, why are you sorry though? You haven't even, I'm sorry to ask, but it's more like we shouldn't apologize when it comes to dealing with our fellow human beings, because we are just here to learn. I think that's the way my world is.
So when your year as Mayor of Southwark concludes, you will remain in politics? You will remain a local councillor, will you? I
will be a councillor for a year until 2026. So I think although I'm wearing this chain, it's more when I'm wearing this, I'm kind of in a very neutral position. Even when I was becoming a counsellor, for example, I didn't know how I became a counsellor because it hasn't been in my book. I have never ever thought one time I will be a counsellor. And I remember always telling people, when you feel, you hear or you see suffering and you don't do anything, then you need to ask yourself about your humanity, where you stand. And I think because of my own lived experience, everything that I've gone through, being homeless, almost like moving home 10 times, losing my husband, being on free school meals, food banks, everything our resident goes through, and also living in a council home where I had massive overflooding, whatever, everything that our residents are going through. That's why I'm more of an expert when it comes to dealing with them, because at least I've been there, and also my clients and that. So because I have heard, I have felt, and I've seen lots of suffering, and I think that's why I pushed myself to be in politics. I always thought maybe the best thing is I can only be involved in decision making if I sit at the table with others. So even when I was elected, for example, I became the first ever hijabi councillor in Southwark, which is something. But after I think my tenure is coming to an end on the 17th of May, then I will be a councillor until May 2026. But as soon as I'm done, I will still be in the community, because I'm more of a community activist.
Okay. As mayor, you recently stood up as an ambassador for FGM, female genital mutilation.
Yeah.
This is something that it is a very difficult subject, I think a very difficult subject for people who have no knowledge of it to hear about, let alone how difficult it is for people like yourself in your culture.
Yeah.
Would you like to say anything about the FGM ambassadorship that you have?
Yeah, I was appointed as an ambassador in 2023, February, but I have been campaigning and being an activist, I think, over the past 20 years plus, because I'm a survivor myself, and this is something which is being done. If I tell you data-wise, 230 million girls have undergone FGM in the global, worldwide, and that is being practiced by almost 98 countries. And then can you imagine that is 4 times the population of UK, women who are living with FGM.
98 countries?
98 countries, yes, not only 98 countries they do, but even 98 countries. But now, that 230 million, 4.3 million girls are at risk of undergoing FGM. At this moment we're speaking, every 12 seconds, a girl is undergoing FGM. And this is nothing to do with Islam, it's completely something to do with culture. And one of the biggest things I always say, one of the biggest things from my understanding, to preserve virginity. There are more other reasons, different cultures, they do different things. But one of the biggest things is to preserve virginity. And I will tell you sometimes, because the kids might be watching, I will encourage maybe your audience just to search FGM, types of FGM, but it's one of the worst things that they do to girls. Coming now to UK, luckily, with my lived experience, it has been very painful, and the way the system treated me is what pushed me even to be more active. And I will give you an example, like talking about my own genitalia is not something so easy, especially from where I'm coming from. But sometimes when something happens to you and you want it not to happen to others, you have to take the risk. That is who I am, because I refuse it to happen to anybody again. The pain and things that I've gone through, the experience are different to others because of the culture. But mainly they do between from age 6 to 15, something like that. Some even from birth, because when they're young, they kind of like prick the tip of the genitalia. I don't want to be using some word, but it's when you're young, not even 15 to be honest, the bone is up to 10, something like that. Different, like I said, different culture, different age, different time of. But for me now, because we have an amazing guideline and we have laws that protect us, it does, you know, and it's active. This is now happening more in countries like Africa. When I'm saying 12, every 12 seconds is not in UK, but the women are at risk of being, young girls are being at risk of being taken. But sometimes, like you say, because it's so emotionally, you know, like it can make people feel like, how dare you doing this to young girls? And that's why I'm so worried about the training that they offer. You know, they have to do the mandatory training in FGM, that when they start showing, the professional becomes more emotionally involved sometimes, and they quickly make some decision which kind of like takes away the trust again between you and the survivor. And I'll give you a very good example. I went to Africa. I was traveling back with my daughter. I was in the long queue. There was this woman who worked there. She was obviously the safeguarding lead. The queue was long. She just came and asked me to come out there. Can you imagine? It's more clear. It's more like FGM is on my forehead. I'm like, because of FGM. And it was one of the worst days of my life. I felt so degraded. And I stood there, I sat somewhere for 30 minutes for her to ask me, until I told her I'm an activist. She let me. But at the end of the day, I do understand. Then there was a time I went for family planning. When I had my fourth kid, I just said, enough. Again, for me, as a Somalian woman, saying I don't want to have more kids is also another risk that I've taken. So when I went for family planning clinic, I allowed the male doctor to examine me. I'm a strong believer of our rights. And for allowing him, for, you know, Islamically, we are not even allowed to shake hands with our, men or opposite sex. But with me, I knew that it's a doctor, he's doing his work, he's not there to look at me. Let me allow him so that we can have more male doctors even coming on board, because this is a serious thing. When I allowed him, he just told me, if I can sit somewhere. Then there was this amazing woman who came. But to be honest, I would call her because I don't like negative word. But when I went into the room with her, she didn't even welcome me in a proper way. The only thing is like, oh, you have a daughter and you're a survivor. I said, yes. But that moment, my memories went back to childhood. Because I had an amazing, when it was being done to me, or when I was little, my experience wasn't so bad. I remembered the perfume, you know, or the clothes that I was wearing. It took me, but nobody understood. Anyway, she just told me, because you're a survivor, I'm going to put you in safeguarding register. And I said, wow, safeguarding register. Remember, I've worked in addiction field, so I do understand what safeguarding is about. And I'm like, now you want to put me in safeguarding register? I wasn't angry with her because she's just following what she was told to do. So it wasn't appropriate for me to kick off. I could have if I did not have the understanding of the system. And I said, wow, now I'm feeling like I'm being treated as a criminal of a crime which I haven't committed yet. Just because I have a daughter, I'm a survivor, and now you don't even care about what I'm going through psychologically. And I told her, do you mind to invite me to, if you go back? No, by then anyway, I was calm, and I told her I could have kicked off badly, but I will save that for you for now. But what I'm going to tell you, if this is how you'll be dealing with many survivors, no one will come to you for sure. I would love to come to your safeguarding meeting and then at least share my experience so that you can hear from a survivor, at least point of view, then we can work together. Don't make us feel like we are nothing or as if FGM is written on our forehead. And this is now what has pushed me. At the same time, challenging the system here and saving the girls back in Africa. And I'm so proud that I am supporting Action Aid, Kenya, and they're supporting a lot of women, and all they need is more money and raising their profile, which I have done since I became the mayor of Southwark. And
Is one of the difficulties over the subject of FGM and its spread across so many countries, is one of the difficulties that it, as a culture, has been attached to Islam and is thought by, our, I suppose, gentlemen of Islam to be the correct path for the woman to be taken along? Has it become a sort of quasi-religious thing?
It is not completely. It is not anything to do with religion. But you know, sometimes some people can easily hide cultural and religion because they know many people cannot say no to the religious practices. But there is nothing in our scriptures, or because we follow our Quran. If there is nothing there, then we follow the teaching of our prophet. But from my understanding, there is nowhere or nothing has ever been mentioned that a woman has to go. But to be honest, the logic thing, when we believe like God has created us full, He knows like every part of our body, the organs and everything, the important role it plays. Otherwise, we could have been created without that. That's the logic way. So for God to create you in a complete way, and then you as a human person, you just kind of catch or think like it's just to take away the pleasure or things like that. But I also want to make it clear, because women who've undergone FGM, sometimes they've been at risk of being victims of domestic violence, and it is very hard to connect to that unless you start talking about it, because we just talk about the pain but it comes with a lot of things. So for example, a woman who's been cut sometime, let me say she's never had any intercourse or anything, the intimacy, I'll use the word, and that their first encounter becomes so painful. Every time that woman will tell herself, when a man comes near her, this is pain. She will never associate the intimacy with pleasure. And then whenever a man comes, it becomes more like a one way rather than it becoming both party enjoying. And then that makes a man, not all, for those who like, I don't know what word I would call them, calling all the kind of names. You are not good in bed, you are like a log, you don't move. And then some of them imagine they kind of like live with that. And and those are the kind of things like when I've been going to school, for example, trying to talk to the teachers on how they can understand parents, because these women are survivors, they bring their kids, we are there to protect their daughters, but you forget that they've gone through a lot and they've never spoken about it. So these are the kind of message that I take across. And I will quickly tell you that when I was working with the GP as a GP shared care practitioner, I remember during lunch break I used to sit with the doctors, just have a chat or go to their staff meeting. And I remember asking the doctors, obviously, for example, the doctors can see you only for 10 minutes and you're only allowed to speak about only one issue. If you come with tummy pain, you will only talk about that. You cannot say all that. And can you imagine asking about now FGM is a must because of safeguarding. But they underestimate that when they ask, for example, that can trigger any underlying psychological issue. And it was until I spoke to the doctor, they're like, we never. Because when a patient comes through, like myself, go to a doctor, oh, are you a survivor? Yes, you have a daughter. Yeah, then take. But it depends with how sometimes they ask. And it was until I started talking about it, I said like, they might need more time, they might need more space just to talk about it, because this is very much like unspoken trauma, which can just explode together with this intergenerational, everything that comes. Honestly, the burden that many of us are carrying is not so easy. We're just going out there smiling, talking, but talking therapy or just, they say problem shared is problem half solved. Some of them, they never have the opportunity. Because I come to you as a white person, talk to you like, what would you really understand about me? But they like, even just talking about it is more like a relief. So FGM is not so much easy, but the other thing is, in UK, we've got 137,000 women in UK. And then Southwark has got the highest FGM preference in the whole of UK. We've got 7,000 of them, including me, in Southwark, and more in Camberwell and Peckham. And those are the kind of things that we talk about. Can you imagine where I represent as a councillor, the population is around 4,000. Can you imagine half of my population, 7,000, being survivors? Although we are minority when it comes to, but we are majority among ourselves. Yeah.
Is FGM on the increase in Southwark?
Nothing, because when it comes to increase, it's women migrating. Because I doubt if it can happen like young girls, who are here being taken, because they can be jailed for 14 years. We have a very, very strict law that protects women. Women are aware, but it's not about women who are here. We are talking about we're in a global village now. People are like migrating, moving, and then we don't even this data. It's not like accurate. It's just an estimate, and even capturing the survivors can be very hard. And I will tell you, for example, like I told you, FGM happened to young girls. And what are the chances of young girls going for medical examination? Very little, right? I've got my 15-year-old, I don't remember the last time she went to hospital. But by the time they go and have giving birth, that was the highly chance where they will know that they need. And that's why I'm thinking at the same time, we need to make sure like we work very closely, protecting young girls, making sure like the system isn't in the best place, to be honest, up to now. We are trying to fix that.
Well, I wish you all the best for your campaigning work with FGM.
Thank you.
It's a colossal task. It's
Is.
on a scale that I hadn't quite appreciated that it would be in so many countries. It's a real shock.
Is. And can you imagine how many of them they die instantly as a result? Women who are giving birth, some of them they die. Can you imagine cutting and stitching up everything, then living in a rural area where there is no hospital, trying to push the baby? Sometimes women die as a result of that as well. We are lucky here, because there is something we call defibrillation, more like an stitching. It's a specialist service that we are trying to push, at least for us to have it within Southwark.
Let me change tack a little bit. I'm a British person, though I wasn't born in Britain. I was born in Egypt.
Oh.
But I came back here with my British parents when I was not 2 years old, so I have no memories. And you're not from Britain, but you are now British.
Yeah.
To become a British citizen, you had to study British history, I think. You possibly know as much as I do about British history. Is that right? Did you have to study to qualify?
You know what it is? Luckily, since I became mayor, every week we usually have citizenship ceremony. It's just so amazing. But when you're going through being a British citizen, there is a kind of, you have to read a lot from the kings, queen, the stories, and that. I got my citizenship back in like 17, 18 years ago. So I don't even remember what I have, but now I have more knowledge about UK because of my curiosity and yeah. But I think we kind of people are becoming naturalized to become citizens. We have more knowledge of Britain than many British, to be honest.
I think you do. And Britain, whatever Britain now is not Britain as it was for me when I was a young boy. 3% in London were not white. Only 3% weren't white in 1961 when I was a young lad.
Yeah.
The latest census, 2021, that figure was very, very different. Only 37% are white in London, which is an amazing drop from 97 to 37.
Yeah.
How do you see Britain moving along? We've got a pretty uncontrolled immigration at the minute, though governments say they're trying to deal with that. What do you see Britain being in, say, 5-10 years, 10 years' time? You
know, to be honest, like I said, I've always been so proud, and even if now today I could have been given any opportunity to live in any other country or getting citizenship of any country, I would always be choosing UK. And this is one of the most diverse countries in the whole world. I would just say, I would talk so positively about UK because of my love for UK and Southwark. But when it comes to immigration, that's another big thing. And unfortunately, when I'm wearing my chain, I have to be very mindful of, and I don't want to put my personal opinion. Obviously, it's changing. 10 years to come, it's going to be even more because like I said, we're in a global village. People are traveling more often. You can go to 3 continents within 24 hours. And that's how you never know what it's going to be like. But definitely it will be many people coming in more. I don't know how they're coming, but it's not for me to talk about that side of the migration. But definitely the way you've seen it change, it's going to keep on changing. But I see it's more like a positive thing because we are becoming one of the most tolerant now. And then accepting others, which is something special with UK.
Yeah, I think we were always a pretty tolerant country, and people had attitudes, and people would speak loudly and mouth off if they thought this or they thought that. But you get that anywhere.
Exactly.
But the essential English or British, I don't know, English particularly, I think despite how they may feel on the surface, actually they just want to get along. And that's almost a universal thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you find it, I think, particularly amongst people who don't have very much. The poor people are often the people who are more instinctively generous with others, maybe even other people they don't know. And that's an interesting lesson. One of the themes for me in these podcasts has been community and faith. Now, you're obviously a person of faith. I imagine you wear the hijab, which is not, I think, prescribed in Islam. It's a cultural attachment to Islam, as I understand it. But you're proud to be a hijabi. You've used the word.
It's part of our religion. It's not even culture. Yeah, hijab it's got nothing to do. It's more like cultural. It's Islam. Those are the kind of thing that, well, like I say, when you find anything in our scripture, in our Quran, then that's our religion. But there is a lot of verses. I'm not so much, I don't have so much knowledge. I don't usually talk about so much when it comes to religion. But for sure, I know it is like a must for a woman as soon as she reaches puberty to wear hijab. I did not come from a very controlling family, like where I was forced to wear hijab. I remember I kind of chose to wear hijab, same as my daughter. I remember my daughter, there was a time that she was going to school and she got beautiful long hair. I'm like, just enjoy your hair, don't. She's like, no, mom. So it's more like a choice that she did. And she wears a better hijab than myself. Yet I am the kind of very person who is I'm being referred as westernized. I don't know, because of the way I'm dressing and the way I socialize. Being a mayor has also been a challenge because there's so many things which I've been doing. As a Muslim, I'm not allowed to be doing, like shaking hands. I love, hugging. They've been calling me the dancing mayor and the hugging mayor. Right. You will see me everywhere, hugging and shaking hands and dancing. But to me, my faith is for me. And what I do, who are you to judge me? And I just tell people, let God judge me. It is so challenging because being mayor, some days I haven't been able to pray at all. And it's something that it's like I took my role and I cannot just in the middle of a very serious meeting, for example, come out. But because deep inside I'm not here I don't want to apologize to anybody because I know if I'm the one who committed sin, it is me who have committed sin. Don't come and tell me or try and correct me. Does that make sense? It has been very difficult having my faith and taking this role, but I took it very amazingly. Because how many? 10 months now, I've attended over 300 events. I have met over thousands of our residents. The number of our residents that I've hugged and I've shaken hands. But when they ask me for why are you shaking hands? Or why are you hugging? Islamically, it's not allowed. That is the question I tend to ask. I tend to respond to, because at the end, remember I've worked with drug addicts and alcohol dependents. I learned that many of them have been rejected. So when I was working with them, when they come and shake, I have to shake hands so that they're not going to feel like justification of the, saying, no, I can't. So I took that behavior from there, and then I don't want to make anybody feel like belittled, like when they want to say, oh, I say, sorry, I can't shake hands. So it is my way of dealing with human beings. So to me, I've always humanity comes before anything. So I love you, whatever, regardless to your background, your religion. whatever differences, we can talk about it later. But at the beginning, I will embrace you. Do anything possible in the name of humanity. So it hasn't been easy as a hijabi Muslim woman, but I have proven to so many it is possible. There is nothing complicated or nothing like extremely, because it's more like, how do you manage? But hijab is just for me, but at the end of the day, my heart is there for the community. Yeah.
Very clearly.
Yeah.
We see that.
Yeah.
You've had a good year.
I did.
And you became mayor very quickly, because you hadn't been a councillor for very long.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
You know what, like I said, how I became a councillor, I didn't kind of like a planned thing that I kind of like planned for years. Although I've been an activist since 2014, just coming out campaigning. But when I was elected as a councillor, the first meeting we had, I just said I want to be the deputy mayor. And it was very much like, and I didn't know what to expect. But I think because I have good relationship with everybody, they believed maybe, you know, if some they've already seen me, they've heard about me, and maybe I had that personality of, you know, there was nothing that I can hide the fact that I love people. And when I put myself as the deputy mayor, I have to withdraw for somebody else. Because the person had been a councillor for very many years, and he's shown interest, and then I said, actually, I need to withdraw for you because I just became a councillor. I've got some years to come. So when I put myself, just the second year of being a councillor, I became the deputy mayor. Then third year I became now the mayor. I've got only now 1 year to go, which is kind of like, well, you know, like, well, kind of amazing timing as well.
Yes, it was remarkably quick, but it's highlighted, or you've had a chance to highlight your FGM activism.
Yeah.
When you refer to yourself as a community activist, is it in relation to the FGM work, or is it broader?
Everything. To be honest, they've referred me as people's person, because like when I told you, when you hear, you see, and you feel suffering, I've been there for every human being regardless. So it's not only FGM. But the fact that FGM, I'm a survivor, it becomes more powerful for me to aim to support these thousands of girls, millions of girls who, you know, at risk and that. But to me, it's very much of everything. Yeah.
One of the subjects that I just want to touch on before we close is multiculturalism. That's a subject that 10 or 15 years ago, when I was not long into doing this community media work, multiculturalism was something that people were very happy about and spoke very confidently about, and particularly in relation to a borough like Southwark, where there are so many languages and so many faith groups, and so many pockets of contrasting communities. And yet, of course, one borough is not very large. Geographically, and so all the little bits have to be seen also as one community. Do you think multiculturalism can be a community, or is it destined to have to be separate communities? You know what, sometimes like it should be like one community. However, remember, when you're talking about multi, we are bringing a lot of people from different backgrounds, different country, different languages. Some they prefer to be by themselves so that they can preserve their culture. Some they don't want it to go, you know, like where they can come all of a sudden, they kind of like, not the word integrate, coming in together. But if we take it as a community, I think it is one of the best things, because you learn from so different cultures, how they do that. And I always say, take the best out of everybody. You don't have to be somebody when it comes to their culture, but at the end, it has created a lot of fears, you know, to many, for those especially who are minorities. Because let me see, for example, within the black community, we are like BAME, right? Black and minority ethnics. When you're looking now at within the black, there are majority and there are minorities within that. But if you all put all that in the one box as black, some of the most disadvantaged won't.
even when it comes to our populations here, it's kind of like there's some who are very literal in terms of their population, and they come, remember, with their culture and with their, if they kind of mix with others, it can create some kind of fear. But it depends with how they take it. But to me, I see it more like something positive, because you will have opportunity to learn different languages. You will learn how to communicate with people. That can help in terms of effective communication. Imagine when you want to help me in terms of, let me see an example, FGM. You have more knowledge about FGM, and you've learned that because of believing of that. When you start talking to me, there is a chance that I'm not going to see you as someone who's invading my privacy, but someone who genuinely understands how to engage in that conversation. So it depends with how individuals take it. Everything has got advantages, and it has disadvantages.
You see, you're an incredibly positive person.
I think.
Yeah. So you're always going to square up in that positive way, and unfortunately a lot of people aren't disposed that way, and that's very difficult. And they need more support, or they need more love, or they need more connection somehow, don't they?
That's one now. It's need more exposure, and what I have learned since I became mayor, even before, it's more like sometimes people won't come to you, you have to go to them. Like now when I go to some event, I know like there's so many there. I'm like coming in, I'm like, where will I start the conversation now? I will just go straight into that conversation, and then all of a sudden they become more curious, become more, and then asking if they can follow me, then we become friends. And I've been one of the person who make friends within every minute, I think. My kids always say that. But at the end of the day, we can make our world the best if we just believe that we're human beings.
Just to finish, I noticed that you had to attend some very British events in the course of your year, such as
the
armistice. Yes. And those things are quintessentially for British people because we're remembering those who gave their lives, decades ago. How do you connect with that sort of event?
To be honest, when you are the mayor of Southwark and you're the first citizen, you have to do everything. But at the end, with me, like I told you, I really love to learn. Obviously, sometimes at the beginning, I was feeling like God. But remember, a lot of war had been fought by also Commonwealth soldiers in that. So when you go back the history, there would be a possibility that maybe even my great might have been involved, which I don't know. But like I told you, I just go with that positive. And I'm standing there as a British woman. So at the end of the day, whether you are from that or you call yourself without, the white British and that, and I call myself black British, I think our values and all that when it comes to Britishness are almost similar. So with me, it's very much a positivity. I've never felt any difference. When I read my speeches there, I feel like it's coming from the heart. I don't just read it. I know there were some times that I've been feeling it, by just saying, because at the end of the day, you remember those who've died. You are a human being. You have connection, especially for somebody like me who believes, like I hate suffering. I don't want, I will never enjoy to see, for someone to die or something. So I give that ultimate respect and knowing that it's my responsibility to do, anything for human beings.